jabbering among themselves in some lingo I never heard before. A few are wearing some rags of clothing, and they have odd-looking sandals. I noticed that most of them showed marks of recent whipping. That may mean they're troublesome, or it may just mean that these choleras are a lot of sadistic brutes. Poor devils. The man called Dosuk Golan was evidently hoping that he'd never catch himself talking about fellow humans like that. The guard captain turned to him. "Coming to have a look at them, Doth?" he asked. "You go, Curve. I'll see them later." "Still not able to look the company's property in the face?" the captain asked gently. "You'll not get used to it any sooner than now." "I suppose you're right." For a moment, Dosu Golan watched Korohin Iragad and his followers canter out of the yard and break into a gallop on the road beyond. Then he tucked his whip under his arm. "All right, then. Let's go see them." The labor foreman went into the house. The manager and the guard captain went down the steps and sat out across the yard. A big slat-sided wagon, drawn by 4 horses, driven by an old slave in a blue smock and a thing like a sunbonnet, rumbled past, loaded with newly picked oranges. Blue wood smoke was beginning to rise from the stoves at the open kitchen, and a couple of slaves were noisily chopping wood. Then they came to the stockade of close-set pointed poles. A guard sergeant in a red-trimmed blue jacket, armed with a revolver, met them with a salute which Kiro Soran returned. He unfastened the gate and motioned 4 or 5 riflemen into positions from which they could fire in between the poles in case the slaves turned on their new owners. There seemed little of that, though Kiro Soran kept his hand close to the butt of his revolver. The slaves, an even 100 of them, squatted under awnings out of the sun, or stood in line to drink at the water butt. They furtively watched the 2 men who had entered among them, as though expecting blows or kicks. When none were forthcoming, they relaxed slightly. As the labor foreman had said, they were clean and looked healthy. They were all nearly naked. There were about as many women as men, but no children or old people. "Rad's right," the captain told the new manager. "They're not local. Much darker skins, and different face structure. Faces wedge-shaped instead of oval, and differently shaped noses, and brown eyes instead of black. I've seen people like that somewhere, but—" He fell silent. A suspicion, utterly fantastic, had begun to form in his mind, and he stepped closer to a group of a dozen odd, the manager following him. 1 or 2 had been unmercifully lashed, not long ago, and all bore a few lash marks. Odd sort of marks, more like burn blisters than welts. He'd have to have the company doctor look at them. Then he caught their speech, and the suspicion was converted to certainty. "These are not like the others. They wear fine garments and walk proudly. They look stern, but not cruel. They are the real masters here. The others are but servants." He grasped the manager's arm and drew him aside. "You know that language?" he asked. When the man called Dosu Golan shook his head, he continued. "That's Karanda. It's a dialect spoken by a people in the Ganges Valley in India, on the Kolgur sector of the 4th level." Dosu Golan blinked, and his face went blank for a moment. "You mean they're from Outtime?" he demanded. "Are you sure?" "I did 2 years on 4th level Kolgur with the Paratime Police before I took this job," the man called Kiro Soran replied. "And another thing. Those lash marks were made with some kind of an electric whip, not these rawhide quirts the choleras use." It took the plantation manager all of 5 seconds to add that up. The answer frightened him. "Kirv, this is going to make a simply hideous uproar all the way up to Home Timeline main office," he said. "I don't know what I'm going to do." "Well, I know what I have to do." The captain raised his voice, using the local language. "Sergeant, run to the guardhouse and tell Sergeant Adarada to mount up 20 of his men and take off after the